Hey, what's going on? It's Doug Cunnington here, and in this video I interview Amelia Gardner. And she is I would call it a recovering lawyer. So she practiced law for a few years, and then she started getting interested in internet marketing, mainly for freedom with her time and to be able to spend time with her kids and her family and just, get out of the environment of the courtroom and lawyers and that sort of thing. I found her because she has a YouTube channel and she publishes a lot of content, and I was like, hey, she seems all right. She interviewed my friend John Dykstra, and that's an interview you should probably check out. Do check out Amelia's YouTube channel. She does a lot of case studies, and they're raw, authentic videos, and we basically just ramble on and on. We just talk, and it's like you're sitting in the room with us as we're just chatting, getting to know each other a little bit. So without further ado, let's hear from Amelia. And don't forget, check out her YouTube channel. Hey, what's going on? It's Doug Cunnington here for The Doug Show, and I'm with my new friend, Amelia. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Doug?
Doing really good. And for the people that don't know you at all, could you give us like a short intro about who you are and what you're working on now?
You said a short intro because it seems like it would be really hard for me to put that into something short. But basically, I'm like you. I'm a person who is I don't want to say middle-aged, but I'm headed that way, and I'm just in this place in my life where I want to make money online. I want to do it in the right way, and I want to replace my old job, my own career, with this whole stuff online. And so, as to what I'm doing, how long you got? Like I could talk about what I'm doing for days, but basically the summary of it is I'm trying to make money online, just like everybody else who's probably watching this.
Very good. And you have a YouTube channel, so we'll back into it. I will segment it so we could have a more structured conversation here. So you have a YouTube channel, and you are talking about a lot of different things. But one of the reasons why I invited you to do this interview is because you're doing case studies, which are generally hard to come by, and a lot of people don't share case studies if they aren't like just home runs, and you're sharing along the way, which is great. And you've built up somewhat of a community. People like your videos, your channel's growing, and you're doing interesting stuff. So that's why I invited you here. Additionally, you left what seemed to be like a successful career because your previous profession was in law. So can you tell us just again briefly, like you did some law stuff, right? How did you get into lawyering?
How did I get into lawyering? Well, that goes back way further than recently. I was a kid 20 years ago, and I decided that I wanted to do something that I thought my parents would like, and that's how I ended up in the practice of law. It was sort of one of those things where I was like, this sounds cool, let's do it, without really giving a lot of thought or doing much investigating into whether or not there was any sort of quality of life. Like I just knew lawyers made a lot of money, and I wanted to make a lot of money, and so I went to law school because that's how you make a lot of money. But then I started practicing law, and I realized that I owed a lot of money because law school cost a lot. And then quality of life, like there are definitely a lot of trade-offs for all that money that you made. I mean, as far as sacrifices in time and family, and yeah, I mean, you had money, but there was no time to take a vacation. Like, okay, sure, you have 2 weeks of vacation, but you have so much stuff going on. Like, there's never a vacation when you're a lawyer. It's just flex time. Like, you do that work that you should have been doing. You just do it when you're not on vacation. So you work those 18-hour days to try to make up for that. And then my kids came, and I realized like, this is not a long-term thing. Like, I don't want to be working 18-hour days. I don't want to miss everything. I would rather make less money, take a giant pay cut, live super simple, and try to make something else work. And so I can see my kids as much as possible. And so that is the primary motivation to moving to this whole, make money online thing. And honestly, though, when I got started doing this, I really never thought that it would be a career, because when I got started, I didn't know that much about it. I had experimented with KDP a little bit. I was like, oh, this is a fun way to make a couple extra dollars self-publishing. And then I found that there's this whole community, like this whole world of people who were doing this for a living. And I was like, what? How is this not a scam? Like, this is a legitimate thing. And the more I dug and the more I dug, I was super suspicious. I was like, this isn't real. Like, these people aren't really doing this. They're trying to sell me some crack. But the more I dug, I started to find people like you and John Dykstra and these other folks in this, I put up my fingers in my community that are really making a living doing this. And I was like, I want to be you guys. Like, I want to do what you're doing. And so that's pretty much what I do every day now, is try to figure out how to do what you guys are doing and to do it as well as I can.
Awesome. So let's get into some of the case studies, and we may circle back to some of the like work life balance and some of the quality of life stuff, because that's interesting, and everyone is either they should be thinking about it or they are thinking, hey, like I can reprioritize what I'm doing. I have some breathing room now, and that sort of thing. So let's start off with the like AdSense case study. I believe you bought a few sites at one point, and can you start at the the beginning of that and just tell us about what's been going on?
Well, my YouTube channel, I'm not an expert, right? Like I would call myself not a beginner, but I wouldn't call myself a newbie, but I wouldn't put myself in a level of expertise where I feel comfortable like selling a course. Like I wouldn't make a course and say, do what I'm doing. I feel like most of my attempts to start websites or to start online money-making activities have been experiments, and every one of them I've learned from. And we haven't talked about this, but I've started lots of websites that didn't launch, like just completely failed to launch because I didn't know what I was doing or I needed to gain experience. And so this particular case study is one of those things. And the reason I started it was because last year in about February, I bought John Dykstra's blogging course that was $47 a year, and he's not offering it anymore. And it's sad because it was so great for the money. It wasn't $997. It was $47 for a year, and it was laid out so well and so simple. And I saw it and I was like, I could do this, right? Like I could do this. This is not a funnel, and it's not an autoresponder, and it's not solo ads and all the rest. Like this is just the model of start a website, a simple, good looking theme, a simple domain, and not a lot of plugins, and just start creating content, focusing on long tail, low competition keywords with the purpose of monetizing it with display ads, with AdSense or Ezoic or Monumetric whenever you get there. But instead of focusing on money keywords, that the folks who are doing Amazon affiliate stuff with, like look for the informational keywords and then try to get as much traffic as possible, because you're targeting keywords that the marketers, that the money makers, the shakers aren't targeting, because technically they seem like keywords that you couldn't make money from. And so the goal is to build as much traffic as you can and the rest. And I thought, okay, this sounds like a simple plan. I don't need to do anything other than sit down and write blog posts. And so I just basically implemented everything that he said to do in that $47 course. And then my case study, is going back month on month and just tracking. Okay, here's what I managed to post. Here's what sort of traffic I'm seeing. Here's what I'm doing and whether or not that was a good idea. And then I'm in month 10 of this. So I just uploaded month 10 of this. I started it back in April. And so far, I think the strategy is working. I've gotten to date for this in 10 months, I've had 60,000 page views in 10 months for a brand new site, and the growth of the site basically followed what I expected to see. We talk about whether or not the sandbox exists. Like people say, oh, it does, or oh, it doesn't. But, the first couple months I didn't see any traffic. And then just over time, I've seen a lot of growth. And now I'm just like kicking myself because I got like 3 months in, right? And you're in the sandbox and, wasn't seeing a lot of growth. And I published like close to 200 articles, right? Like almost 200 articles in 3 months. Some of it I outsourced because I was experimenting, with some of the things that John talked about in his course. And then at month 3, I ran out of gas. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like, I'm not seeing traffic, and obviously I'm not seeing money because I'm not monetizing it with any other affiliate programs. And I got approved for AdSense right away, like a month away, right? So AdSense is on there, but I've got like 3 or 4 pennies that I made in July. And so I figured I would just put it down and I would be patient. And I went to work on YouTube for a bit. And then I checked back in like September and I wanted to slap myself because, of course, all those articles that I had produced was starting to see traffic. And then, it was really hard to turn the motor on again because I was so involved in YouTube. But just continuing to watch that site grow. And I was like, I better get back on this. So in January, I started creating content for it again. It's like, okay, this is a long-term asset, right? It's not like something that I'm just going to turn and flip tomorrow, something that I'm hoping to build and build and build and hang on to for a while until I can get it to someplace where I want to sell it, or if it's just something that earns money every month. So.
And can you share the like traffic for like last month, which would be January of 2020?
Sure. I had, what was it, 16,000 users and just over 17,000 page views. A lot of people are coming to the site and getting their questions answered. And then I'm having to work on strategies to keep them on the site because a lot of it is informational, right? They go there and they get the answer to their question, and then they're not that interested in going into the rest of the site. So, I have the related post plugin, which seems to be only kind of effective. A lot of people go to the homepage, which I think is unusual because a lot of people just bounce right back. But I'm seeing a lot of people clicking on the logo to go back to home and looking at the front page. So I'm working on creating I put up my air quotes, like binge-worthy content on the homepage to say, okay, if somebody went there, maybe they wouldn't find that content with the Google search, but maybe it would be clickbaity enough and good enough where they would click on it and then stay to try to improve those other Google Analytics metrics, like the bounce rate and the time on site and all that stuff. So that's actually what I'm working on in the last couple of days is putting up more of like a journal that isn't really going to be found with organic search, but it's something that people see that and they're like, oh, that's interesting. It's maybe I wouldn't have found it any other way, but maybe it will suck them in. And I guess I'll just see if anybody actually clicks on those posts, or not, because I'll know, if they were there or not.
That's smart. And I mean, I agree with what you said. Like, I don't think many people, like after they have their problem solved, they're not looking around to waste time generally by clicking on your homepage and then like, what can I, just avoid doing work or whatever. I guess a lot of people do that because now that I'm saying it, I'm like, sometimes I go to Instagram and I just endlessly scroll as I'm trying to waste time. But rarely do I go to a home, like find a site, have my problem solved, get the information, then go to the homepage. So
Yeah, well,
interesting.
that's why I don't really like worry too much about the bounce rate in Google Analytics. Like an almost 100% bounce rate really doesn't bother me that much because it doesn't mean that people aren't getting what they need from my site. It just means that they are going back. And that's actually one thing that I really love about Ezoic because their bounce rate metric only triggers if somebody stays on the site for less than a certain amount of time. So they'll call it a bounce if somebody bounces before 30 seconds have passed or something, or 10 seconds, I forget what it is. And then they won't call it a bounce if somebody stays longer than 30 seconds. So my bounce rate for this site is like 94% in Google Analytics, but in Ezoic, it's under 20%. So 80% of the people who come to my site stay at least 30 seconds. Which to
Perfect.
me, I don't think that counts as a bounce. And they also call it a navigational bounce. So if somebody gets there and they're like, oh crap, I don't want to be there, and they click back right away, that's also another metric that Google Analytics doesn't give us. And that's why I'm obsessed with Ezoic right now.
Cool. Yeah. I like Ezoic. I am a friend of theirs. So, okay. So any other like notable stuff on the AdSense case study?
Oh, you mean notable? Like I try all kinds of things and it either does nothing or I can't really tell one way or another whether or not it's having a positive impact. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that I'm trying out, but
Yeah,
um,
how about a couple of those, like things where you're like, hey, I was going to test it out, and this clearly did not work.
or I could just clearly not tell one way or another because I have a site that's on a traffic range like this, and so I say, okay, let's see about buying a backlink from the Hoth, which I did in November. I thought, okay, like they're on sale, let's just try this out, and then never having done it before, I say, okay, let's just try this. And so I went there and bought a backlink, and I didn't spend top dollar. I just spent one of the lower ones. I'm just like sticking my toes in, right? So it was $150. I thought, let's try this. And then, went like clockwork. They said, oh, thank you very much. You'll have your backlink within 30 days. And I got the report. And I don't know. I cannot tell one way or another whether it did a single thing. Like I see the link in Google Search Console, like I can see the link on, the website, but can I tell whether any of the growth that I have had is the result of that? Like I have no clue, like whatsoever. Like literally. I mean, I probably shouldn't have spent that money. I probably should have not have bothered, but that's one of those things.
Well, and I was gonna say, do you have a way to check that in the future? So now you've identified, hey, it's pretty hard to tell if a backlink helps. So
I think that if I ever got to a place where the site wasn't growing, but it was stabilized, like it was flat, like if the site was ever at that point where it wasn't flat, or maybe if it was going down. The thing is like when you're continually adding content, like do you really know whether or not it's the new content? I mean, obviously you can go and check analytics to see the pages, like the specific pages, what sort of traffic they are getting. But just overall, like if the site is about the same, that could be a good time to try adding like one link, right? Just one at a time, and then watching it for a couple of months without changing anything else. But if you're constantly testing and constantly changing things, like how do you know? And that's the thing about the algorithm updates, right? Like people, their site takes a hit and they're like, like, what do I do? And then they change everything, right? They're like, I need more content and I need backlinks and I need to disavow this and I need to add this. And then what? Like, what was the thing? Like, what was wrong? Like, we have no idea. That's actually been something that I've had to work on, is being patient and trying to do maybe one thing at a time rather than 100 things. Because if I really want to know what's working and what's not, like I have to slow down. And that was one thing that was really hard with AdSense when I first got started, because you want to test out the ad positions, right? You put the ad unit here and then you put one here and then you watch it for like 2 days and you're like, okay, maybe if I move it here, it'll be better. But 2 days is not long enough as far as testing the performance and how that is a good place or not. You have to wait. Like you should wait a month, I think, at least. Like put it there and then watch the stats on it for a month and then move one, not three of them, not four of them, not 10 of them, just one.
and a couple observations. And number one, and I'll ask you a question. There's a question at the end of this, but
Sure,
um,
sure.
there are over 200 ranking factors with Google, and yes, we're usually, hopefully, doing multiple things at the same time that are beneficial. So yeah, it's like virtually untraceable unless you have like a super like scientific way to do this. Which there are people like Kyle Roof and the people in the IMG group over there. We'll link up to it, but basically like you can run tests in a scientific way, make it repeatable, do all that stuff. And, my position has been consistent that links are helpful. You should like move forward with links. But yeah, I guess the way you explained your particular link, it may or may not have helped. Like any specific given link may or may not help, but pretty sure like over time. And if you go just do research in the wild in a uncontrolled environment, you see generally sites with more links, they're doing better. And there's a chicken or the egg situation happening too. But yeah, I mean, links help. So, and are you of the, I guess, strategy to just not worry about links? Or are you like, hey, you should have an active approach with link building, outreach, and so forth?
I think that I probably run the middle on that. I agree with you. I think that links are a powerful signal to all of the world out there that content should be in a particular place or not. I don't actively spend a lot of time hunting down links just because I feel like for this ad revenue situation where it's like a content push, like the more content you have out there, the more traffic you want to get. And for me, the return at this point, at least with this particular case study, is better spent putting out more content, because it could take a whole day. Sometimes you go and you try to hunt down a guest post and then get the content written for them and then go back and forth on the edits and the rest. And I have tried this, like going out and, looking for sites in the same niche and then emailing them or filling out their write for us page, and then just getting hearing nothing back, right? They don't even respond to you, or they respond to you and say, we're not interested, or you need to pay us a whole bunch of money. And I'm like, I could have cranked out 3 articles for this. And so I think for me, as far as backlinking now, I'm thinking more about natural links rather than going out and buying them or finding them. So thinking of content that people would just want to link to, not necessarily long form content, but things that would be cool to link to. Like somebody would see it on Pinterest and say, hey, I would want to link to that. Like, I think printables, for example, are something that are really underserved on a lot of websites that people don't even think of. They think of infographics, right? That somebody would want to put on their page, but printables, these resources that people could print out and hang up on their walls or use as like checklists. They seem like they would be useful in any niche. Like you had an outdoor site, you could do a printable checklist for packing for camping, packing for mountaineering, packing for whatever. And that's something that people would want to save. Like, oh, that's really interesting. I would like to come back to that. Or it would be, wanting to share that on my own website because I don't feel like creating it myself. Things that people, for kids, like if you have any sort of website that involves children or families, like things that you can print out for kids to do, things that have the lines that people could fold up, things that you could color, things that you could post on the wall. Like those are simple things that you wouldn't necessarily have to buy, like have somebody create. Like you could go on Canva and use their fonts, right? The block fonts, and create things that kids could color, or you could draw them. Like if you have any sort of skill whatsoever, like the parents, I'm a parent, right? So this is something that I'm constantly already hunting for myself, like things that just are neat for the kids to color in, that maybe are unusual, that are science-based, that are just you're not going to find anywhere else. And it doesn't take a lot of money. So I think, okay, I could spend $500 on a DA, domain authority of a bajillion, right? Or I could probably spend a couple dollars, on Fiverr, outsource that, or even sit and just do it myself and create 20 of these, and then maybe get links from some of these really high authority blogs that could use them. So am I actively going out and buying links? I'm not, because I don't want to spend a whole lot of big money on my site until it is earning, right? Maybe once let's say I'm pulling in 50 grand a month, like, sure, I'll go and spend money and outsource on the rest. But for now, I'm super conservative on spending money. I saw your interview with Ron Stefanski about his blog that he created kind of on the same timeline that I did. And he said that he had dropped, $15,000 on it. And I think my jaw almost like fell off, right? Because we're not actually that far away from the number of page views or whatever. I think mine is like 600 and some a month, and he's at 800 page views a month. And you guys talk about time and money, like exchanging time for money. You have one or the other, whatever. I've invested my time. He's invested his money. But I was like, man, 15 grand. I was like, holy cow.
Yeah. And it's easy to let it get away. And a couple things. So good points on creating a sort of like natural assets that are linkable, that people actually want to link to. And quick clarification, I don't necessarily like say that you should go buy links, or you can do that if you have the budget, like Ron or someone else who has the budget. But if you naturally do it through like relationship building, then usually you can get good links, and then you're part of a network, and that is a much better way to do it. And I think a lot of people fall into the trap of, hey, I hear I need to get links. I'll go to Fiverr and I'll get some guest posts for $15 a piece. And then they end up like, maybe it works for like a little while and they get more traffic, and then they'll get penalized or they'll run into some issue. So, okay, cool.
Well, what I wanted to say though, just my sort of YouTube community, I've talked to a lot of people who are right around where I am, right? They're in the first year of a new site, and they maybe are following other methods, right? Like the Project 24 guys, like I really like their stuff and I respect the hell out of them. And they're, but a lot of their students are coming to me and we talk about links just offline or like on Facebook. And I said, hey, you know what? do you need a backlink? Like, we have a similar niche and we'll try to work something out. Not reciprocal. It's just like, I want to help you. Right. And they're like, I can't do backlinks. I'm not going to do that. My site will just explode. Like they're literally afraid to do any link building whatsoever because they think that doing it will automatically tank their site. And I think there are a lot of people out there just because of maybe some of the strong approaches that other people are taking about how links are bad and how links are going to ruin your site because Google is going to update you and destroy you. And you've seen all these horror stories about sites just tanking because of, probably bad backlink practices. I mean, they're just afraid. Like they said, no, thank you so very much, but I don't want your link, which to me is like, okay, like there's got to be some balance. I don't see how a website could grow without at least some links. I mean, you got to have something.
And just anecdotally, how's the traffic on those sites? Are they like, hey, we're doing pretty good, no links?
Not yet. Like, this growing really, really slow. Really, really, really slow.
Shocking, right? I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of dogma, like in one direction or the other, and some people are like, hey, I'll get links however I need to get them. I'll pay for them. I'll do whatever. And then on the other side is like, hey, don't ever do it. And I mean, from the standpoint of like purely a natural like piece of content or a fully like natural blog where someone's writing just whatever they want to write about, and they get, because I've actually been bumping into people in the like personal finance space, and a lot of them do just write about like whatever they want to write about that's helpful without regard to keyword research, link building, and they don't even care. They're doing fine. So there's many ways to do it, but I think the networking piece, always network. That's a good thing to do. So,
well, for my site personally, like I didn't pursue or really get any links in the first, like natural links, even in the first 5 or 6 months. So, at 6 months, I was seeing traffic of a couple thousand page views a month by then. So I think it can be done. Honestly, I do think it can be done. I do think you can get out of the sandbox and get going without that, but it has to be super low competition, like the lowest competition possible type keywords, because if you have anyone that has any more authority than you, they're going to take that keyword from you. They're going to take the number 1, 2, 3 spot from you.
And you just completely summarized like the point of like why one should do some link building or at least network. Because like if you are friends with people and you do put out a good piece of content, they may link to your site. So, okay.
Please don't.
Moving on to, let's see, one of your other case studies. I know you have a couple more.
Well,
So.
the things that in the last year I have published on as far as things I'm trying out was this particular case study based upon buying John Dykstra's blogging course. And then last year, around the time that I burned out on my case study, I was like, okay, I have money burning a hole in my pocket. I want to try buying a site, right? I want to see what it's like to try and jump over, the first 2 years of building a site, buy something that is already earning. What does that process look like? Is it, you go to Empire Flippers or FE International, and they've got these sites they just look wonderful, right? They're established sites, and the brokers, they do all this vetting for you, and it's supposed to be so much more trustworthy than going to some place like Flippa, which is full of crap and scammers. And so, what is that process like? And I'd never bought a site, and I'm not technical at all, right? So, the like migration and I'm just kind of looking down the road and saying, okay, if this case study is something that I have that eventually I may want to sell, what does this process look like? I've always been of the mind, like, until you can do something really well, like you can't hire someone else to do it because you can't manage them. So I was like, okay, one day I want to sell this site, and maybe I'll have a broker help me do it, or maybe I'll have a tech person help me migrate it. But until I've learned a bit about how to do it, then how will I know they're not taking me for a ride? How will I know that these fees are worthwhile or not? And so I thought, all right, I'm going to invest. I just spent $150,000 on law school when I was a kid. Why not spend some money on myself in this experience, and it'll be dramatically less than going to business school, right? So I went to Empire Flippers, and I also checked out Flippa, and I went to the Shopify marketplace, and I basically trolled everywhere that I could find that was listing sites for sale, and eventually entered into negotiations on a site on Empire Flippers, and I bought it. It was a site that was under $50,000 and went through that whole process, and I've owned it since July. And that has been an incredible learning experience. It basically sort of was a kickstart into the whole world of website investing. We're buying an established earning website, and the ups and downs and the risks of doing that, and the potential benefits of doing that, and how that works out. And it's been really interesting and really fun.
So you bought something from Empire Flippers, and I've done some business with them. They're good folks, and they actually helped me like get my start through their podcast. So I listened to like the early days, or at least my early days, but they had a couple years of podcast out there. So cool. So you got the site, and then did you have a plan on growing it or doing more stuff with it? Like what was your plan?
So, if you've been to Empire Flippers or any of these brokers, they often have different types of sites, the different categories. They have their SaaS sites and their FBA sites and their content sites and all the rest. And I bought a site that was monetized through AdSense and no other affiliate sites. So I brought it in. I thought, all right, here's what it is earning. And, the plan was to try to do more of what was already working for the site, which was at the time to just continue to publish content on that particular topic. The seller provided, operating procedures and said, this is how I structure every single post. This is where I get the keywords. I mean, it wasn't a niche that I wasn't that familiar with, but I was super confident in my abilities to learn enough about the niche to be able to at least write about it, because I'm a good researcher. And I thought, okay, I could do this. And so I did. I started creating content for the site that was very similar to what the seller had made, even though it wasn't really in my style and just the stuff that I had learned, because I wanted to keep doing what it was that he had done. And then I went and found an affiliate program that fit in with it, and then added that. And it hasn't made a ton of money. It's added maybe somewhere between $5 and $50 a month on top of what it was earning before, but it's still just like one more thing that over time you hope that you would grow and that it would become more. I didn't want to make any giant changes to it, like, oh, I'm not going to change the theme and I'm not going to change the content and the rest, because I was really afraid of destroying it. Right? You have something that's already earning, and you don't want to go in there necessarily and make too many changes to it, because, who knows what Google's going to do with it, right? They may say, oh, well, this isn't what it was as it was before, and we're going to change the rank of all your posts, and then you lose all your traffic. And plus, I just don't know enough, right? Like, I'm not an expert. I'm not an SEO genius. I don't know how to test everything. So I, was just trying to do little things at a time. And I worked on it, I would say pretty consistently for about 6 months, and then just decided to kind of put it down and just watch it for a bit. And in hindsight, I wish I had done that from the beginning, because I was super fired up to, I'm gonna 10x this thing, right? I don't know why everybody loves to use like 10x, like this arbitrary 10x.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna go and I'm going to do this, right? And what I wish I had done, and I would advise anybody who's buying something in the future to do this, which is get it migrated and then sit on it and watch it, because there's so much that happens during migration and there's so many changes. And then when you start making changes, you don't necessarily know the impact of those changes, like we talked about earlier. So you would want to do one thing at a time rather than 10 things at a time. And, now looking back, it's hard to say, whether anything that I did at all was a good investment in my time or my money, because I was doing all kinds of things to a site that had just been migrated and needed to settle down. So have I been doing a good job? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I literally have no idea.
And I think, well, that's common, especially like it was your first purchase of a site and the migration and all that stuff. Speaking of which, did you find, as a non-technical person, was it difficult, hard, confusing during the migration? And do you have a handle on it now that you've, owned it for many months?
Well, the upside of using a broker versus going through someone like Flippa is they handle the migration. So, they basically get all the passwords and then they just do all of that stuff. And if you don't have an opinion about how things are supposed to go where you want it, they'll just do it for you. So as far as doing the migration, I mean, I didn't handle a lot of that. And actually, before I bought this site, I had sort of had the same experience where I just wanted to know how to do things. And so I actually started this process over at Flippa. Like I hunted over on Flippa for about 3 months looking for a content site that somebody, specifically, I was looking for sites that were started by beginners who, barely got the site out of the sandbox, maybe got some backlinks, or maybe got a bunch of content up there, but never really figured out how to monetize it, or they just ran out of gas, gave up. I think that's really common for people to start things and then right around the year mark when their hosting and domain are going to expire, they're like, whatever. And that is a prime time to pick up a site that has content that hasn't been monetized at all, because you have a year of content, and the content may be good or not. I mean, you're going to look at each site, but still, like, that's a great time to pick up a site from somebody when they're just like, I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't care anymore, or I want to work on this other niche. So that's what I was looking for. And I did find one of those sites that was 2.5 years old, and it had 180 posts on it already. And the individual had worked on it really hard, and he couldn't figure out how to get it approved for AdSense. His navigation was just too complicated. He had way too many plugins on there, and just had said, "Oh, I haven't gone through AdSense because it slows down the site too much." And it was clear to me after getting a hold of it that he just had never been able to get it approved for AdSense because he didn't know how. And it was just a couple simple things, and I got it approved for AdSense right away. And then, it's just something that I've got in the stable now, but it was something I had to migrate myself because, on Flippa, there are no people to do that. And that's probably one of the reasons why I won't go through Flippa again, because there are so many times when you have to really trust that that seller is legit, because there's nobody in the middle, right? You give your money to Flippa and they'll hold it in the escrow or whatever, but they have to trust that these people will actually give you the passwords to the Facebook social, and then they're every day emailing you like once an hour, like, can I have my money? Can I have my money? I'm ready for my money. And then you're like, oh God, like, do I have everything? I don't even know. And I was so new to this, right? So I bought the site. I'm like, woo, I just bought a site. And then he's like, okay. And I was like, so what happens? Like, how do we do it? Like, I don't know. Like, what am I supposed to do? Are you going to do this? And so then it was like, okay, I had to just jump in and figure out. And he took the bull by the horns, thankfully. And he's like, all right, well, I'll transfer the domain to you, which he needed to do anyway. And I think in hindsight, this was probably his first time too, because he didn't know either. But he transferred the domain over. And then with the hosting, a lot of times with hosting, you're just able to take over the account, transferring, the whole site and doing the download of all the stuff and then uploading it somewhere else. Like, I didn't even realize this, that it's a lot of times the hosting account will just let you change over all the details. Like, they'll just let you give the account to someone else. But in the future, I would be asking, okay, where is your domain name being held? And then who is your hosting provider, to see if it would if they have SiteGround like I do, or if they have DreamHost like I do. Because of all this buying and stuff I've done lately, I have like 5 different hosting accounts. I have Bluehost, I have SiteGround, I have WPX, I have DreamHost, and I can't even remember the last one. I have so many of them.
Yeah, it gets complicated fast. And I think, well, I want to jump back because I had a couple people email me recently. They said, hey, I don't know how to get my site approved for AdSense. So do you have any quick tips based on what you learned in that approval?
The thing about that is they want to see it as simple as possible. So sites that have a lot of widgets and a lot of things that are complicated are going to have a harder time getting through. They're really concerned about fake clicks or accidental clicks. And so they don't like menus that pull down, right? So up there across the bar, you have the thing that says category, and you click on it, or you mouse over it and then it drops down. If it drops over an ad, they're going to deny you outright, because that could lead to confusing or accidental clicks, which harms their revenue and harms their legitimacy, because they don't want advertisers, coming back and saying, hey, I want my money back for this paid click, because these aren't real clicks. These are fake clicks. So navigation, I think, is a really big problem for folks. A lot of people apply without having a privacy policy or terms of service on there. You're going to get denied outright without a privacy policy or the legal stuff. It doesn't have to be complicated at all, but if you don't put that on there, I'm in a Facebook for bloggers group, and people are saying all the time, I applied for AdSense and I got denied. I don't know why. And the most common reason people get denied is they just don't have a privacy policy on there. Like that is going to get you dinged no matter what. Sites that have high amount or almost all affiliate content, where all the links in all your posts are to affiliate offers, are probably going to get denied, even if it's on a topic that is not in violation of the terms of service. If it's just all affiliate content, like all you are doing is promoting products and not really offering any other types of information or value, it doesn't necessarily violate any of their rules, but they're not going to be interested in serving ads on your page because it's just all advertising. People don't realize that they might have content on their website that violates the terms of service, especially if they buy a big site. There might be one page in there that is about gambling or about alcohol or whatever. AdSense has moved, instead of saying, oh, we're just going to, ban your whole site. They say, oh, well, we'll just not show ads on any page that has these particular keywords or whatever, which is fine. But when you're trying to get through in the beginning, you don't want to give them any reason at all to not let you in, because if they can find a reason not to let you in, they will. They're just like, nah, you're just not interested. And you get that email and it has no instructions whatsoever about what you did wrong or how to fix it. It just says, your website doesn't meet our needs at this time. And then you're like, okay, what does that mean? I don't know how to fix this.
Perfect. Those are great tips. So simple navigation, terms of service or privacy, and then making sure that there's no like questionable content anywhere, especially if it's a big site. Okay.
Yeah, also make sure you have an actual contact us either page or some way that people could get a hold of you. So if you don't have any sort of email listed or contact us spot, people say, oh, well, you need to have an about page that explains who you are and what you're about. Like, I do that, but I don't know one way or another whether it matters. And also people say, oh, you need to have a premium theme. And I say, oh, well, I don't know that it needs to be a paid theme. It just needs to look good. Like if it looks like crap, even though everything else might be fine, you might not get through.
It's a very good point. I think you talked about with the navigation that having complicated navigation is not good to get approved for AdSense, but it's also like just kind of a dumb thing to do. Like, why have a complicated, huge menu? Like that is mind-boggling to me, because a lot of people are on like mobile devices. Like, what are you going to do with a big menu on a mobile device? It's almost unusable. So,
yeah, I think if I were to start again with a brand new site or a site that I had bought, when I went to apply for AdSense, I would strip all the ads off of it. Like if I was using another ad network or I was putting ads through some other provider of rev content or whatever, I would just strip all of the ads off of it. And then just go down to bare bones, like here's the content, this is what it looks like. And then once you get approved and once you get through, I mean, there's no rules against putting other ad networks on your site. Like I run Ezoic and AdSense ads at the same time. A lot of people run different ad networks on there, but I would just strip everything off before applying.
YouTube. So why did you start a YouTube channel? It sounded like you had a lot of stuff going on already.
I started YouTube in August of 2018. It was back when I was first getting started, and I fell into the ClickFunnels rabbit hole, right? Like Alice in Wonderland, like I was a KDP, and then I came across an ad for ClickFunnels, and then I just went right down the rabbit hole, like just so far stupidly down the rabbit hole. I actually did find some success and made the money back that I invested into, having the ClickFunnels software, for a couple of months and buying solo ads and setting up an email responder and using ClickMagic, right? Like I gained a ton of experience from this, but I went down this rabbit hole of starting Facebook groups and spending all your time like going on Facebook Live and doing all these things. And it was in the middle of this shitstorm, the technical term for this, I would call it life shitstorm, that I discovered that I had a giant Achilles heel. And that was that while I was a good speaker, I'd been a lawyer for 10 years and I don't have any problems talking to you right now. I can express myself really well. But I had this giant fear of being on camera and seeing myself, like seeing my face and hearing my voice being played back. It was overwhelming, right? And I found when I had joined this Facebook group where they required that you introduce yourself live to the group, and I cried. It was awful, right? Like I just had this overwhelming, like people are going to see and people are going to see my face and they're going to realize that my teeth aren't straight and that I have this giant nose and that, it's just like, it was paralyzing, and it gives me the vapors now, even thinking back about it, because it was horrible. Right. And I realized that I had this giant fear, and at the time I was looking at ClickFunnels and people like, oh, to be in a good affiliate marketer, you have to be able to do video. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do it. I'm going to fail. Right. Like I can't do it. I can't go on video. I'm going to be hiding forever, And so I was like, you know what? The best way to deal with this is to hit it head on. And at the time I had accidentally, like ClickFunnels is all over the place, right? Like I love the ideas and the energy or whatever, but I bought their 100 days thing, right? The book, and I thought it was great, but they accidentally sent me the little MP4 player for Funnel Hacking Live, like the bonus package for when you bought a Funnel Hacking Live ticket for $1,000 or whatever. They sent everybody the show notes or whatever from the years before, and then an MP4 player of all of their presentations for the last 4 years or 5 years or something. And so I started listening to it, of course, because it was free and I'm always outside with my kids. And there was all of Garrett White's content on it. And Garrett White is not my people, right? Like he's this white dude who's creating content for businessmen who are white dudes with families, right? So not a lot of it resonated, but he explained how he got started. And he said, when I first got started, he says, I started with my phone and I put it up there and I just started talking to people. And half the time you couldn't see my face on the screen. And most of the time people ridiculed me, like just left comments on it and told me how awful I was. And he said, but I went back and did it every day and every day and every day. And over time I got better and I got better and I got better. And I was like, all right, let's do this. So that's what I did. I started going on YouTube. And if you go to my YouTube page, you can see my first video. And I think I'm wearing this shirt. And I think I spent a lot of it going like this. And then at the end of the video, you see me and it's like a minute long, right? And at the end of the video, like I have recorded myself trying to turn it off. And I was like, this thing like turn off, right? And then I left it there because over time I got better at it. And I figured, okay, well, if somebody else is like me who can do this, but just has anxiety about it, maybe they'll go back and watch that video and they'll laugh at me, kind of like I laugh at me now. But that's why I started YouTube. That's why I started. It's not why I do it now, but I started it then because I felt like I had this weakness that I had to improve, and it bothered me that something was getting the best of me. It was better than me, and at the time I perceived it as something that was a hurdle to keeping me from succeeding this whole make money online shitstorm. So that's why I started YouTube.
Interesting. And I find it very interesting because I don't do public speaking. I think I'm getting better at it as I'm doing it a little bit more because that's how things work. But it's interesting that you were nervous to talk to a laptop or, your webcam. But
because I could see my face.
Right. Still
it's different. If I could just see you and not see my face, I could do it. But I could see myself. And then I was super critical, right? Because I was looking at myself. And then, to edit it, you have to play it back and then look at yourself. And I was like, what? Who is that? That is not how I sound. That is not, I'm not the person who stares in the mirror a lot, right? Like I don't wear makeup. There's no makeup here. Some people they like to look at themselves and get ready. I throw on a shirt, put on my glasses, and I'm out the door, right? I didn't do that stuff.
But I guess the point that I was trying to make is more that you're fine you were a lawyer, so you talk to a lot of people. Communication is
I talked to
very,
1,000 people at a time. Like I've talked to like thousands of people all at once, but I couldn't speak to myself.
yeah, like I said, very, very interesting because most people are very scared to go speak in front of even a small group of people. Some folks will just like melt down in the same way that that
Oh
you
yeah.
mentioned. So cool. Well, at this point, why are you doing YouTube?
Well, I continue to do YouTube now because of a couple reasons. One is I say, okay, it fits into my overall financial scheme of having multiple income streams. So eventually I'd like to grow it to a point where it was producing at least some money because having been, I don't want to say the victim, but being the victim of the Google, right, doing its thing, like I know that I'm better off having income coming from different places if this is ultimately going to be where I settle as far as my career, right? My online career. Like I don't want to put all my eggs in just one basket because if one of them gets decimated, hopefully I can still be earning from other places. So one, it fits that mold is eventually get some sort of revenue incoming from it. Two is, I'm sitting here in my office, right? Like my space, like it looks super clean, but it's really full of kids crap. It's just all over there. But I'm by myself, and I have always worked in offices. I've always worked in teams, and um, I had a really hard time sitting at home by myself and getting motivated. I never realized how much I got from being able to go to the water cooler or stand around the coffee machine with my colleagues and talking about what we were doing and learning from each other, saying, okay, like I'm filing this thing, like what do I do or how do I do it? Or when you did it, how did it work? And I just wasn't finding a lot of that banter or that discussion in Facebook groups. I mean, it seems like I don't want to say all, but most of the Facebook groups that are make money online groups are people who want to be affiliate marketers who want to sell affiliate marketing products. So they want to sell the make money online dream to other people. And there are people who are doing a great job at this and selling a high quality product, and other people who treat it like sort of an MLM, like just get more people in to get more people in to get more people in. And that's not really what I'm doing. I'm not interested in selling make money online products. Maybe one day in the future I'll sell a product that's similar to the one that gave me my initial boost, right? That how I do what it is that I do. But I wasn't finding that. And on, like you said earlier about case studies, like there are people out here who are sharing case studies, but in most cases they're the success stories, right? Somebody who's already got $1,000 a month or $10,000 a month or $50,000 a month, and finding the people who are in the beginning who are like, I'm doing this wrong. Or I tried this and I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe one, those people like me don't share these things because one, they don't know if there's anybody who is like them. Two, they might be shy of going on YouTube and starting their own channel because it is putting yourself out there and opening yourself up for the trolls to come and talk, say bad things about you or leave nasty grams. You don't know what you're doing. I was like, I don't need you to tell me I don't know what I'm doing. I know I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. So I decided to continue to push through on YouTube to try and find those people who were like me and sort of gather us together. Like, I know I'm not at expert level and I'm not ready to sell a course. And my affiliate marketer friends, who hopefully some of you guys are watching this, are constantly after me, like, you need an email list and you need to, have at least a freebie or something to get people. And like, I just don't feel ready to do that. I want people to come to this channel for the reason that I'm there, which is to be in a community of like-minded people who want to grow things. And I think a lot of us are coming to this model because we're tired of being sold to all the time, and we're tired of people who take our interaction and our presence in their community as the go-ahead to constantly try to sell us stuff. There are great Facebook groups out there for affiliate marketing. These guys and gals are sharing value, and they are teaching, and they're doing so many great things. But a lot of these groups are, let me hammer you with an offer, and here's another one, and here's another one. And you join their email list, and they send you 25 emails a day saying, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. And I'm like, that's not helpful. That overwhelms me. And I guess maybe I've just gone the other way because I was so immersed in that world. I just want to create a group of people who are interested in doing what I do. And then eventually, if I create a product that that I want to sell that is helpful to people, I mean, I'll do that, and maybe there's some of those people will be interested or not. But for now, I just think there are a lot of us. I feel like misfits in a way. Like we're sort of out there doing our own things on our own, and then there's not really a place to get together for this level. Like the next level seems to be lots of people like surrounding them, like your level, John Dykstra, 1 hour professor. Like you guys have, I feel like you guys have made it, right? And people surround you because of that. They want to learn from you, and that's great. And then there's those of us who would just like to be comfortable enough to share the story of like, yeah, that was a bad idea.
Yeah. Yep. And I think, yeah, Facebook groups are not my thing. I've definitely gone off on them in the past. I don't think I was like in many groups where they like were heavily marketing, because maybe I just never went into them. But I always found that like there were a lot of people who didn't know what the fuck they were talking about, giving like very, very convincing advice. And I'm like, I can't handle this. I mean, my personality doesn't fit for Facebook groups anyway, but, or at least like the make money online area. But if it was something different, perhaps if it was beer related, I can get on board with that. But generally, yeah, there's a lot of people that just like regurgitate information that they don't actually know or understand, because it's really easy to do in a Facebook group. So that's one of my knocks for such groups. But anyway, I think that is a great reason to do YouTube. And I think there's no rush to like have the email list or even have a gathering area. I was interviewing someone yesterday who has like great podcast. It's coming, the episode will be coming out soon, but basically she has like one of the biggest podcasts in her industry, and she has not run any ads, right? 200 episodes, no ads so far, and she's looking into it now that she has her sort of a foothold, and she understands what she wants to do and companies that she would feel comfortable standing behind and working with them. And I was like, holy cow. And I mean, millions of downloads, like an insane level. And she was just like patient. She didn't need to do anything with it. And I was like, that's a great way to do it. There's no rush. So
Was that the wife of Mr. 1500?
no,
Wow.
different person. Her name is Julie, and she hosts the Fire Drill. So same industry, same sort of topic area, but yeah, Mindy will be soon. Mindy will be coming on soon. So
See, I do pay attention. I've been consuming your content. I do.
thank you. By the way, did you watch the Carl Jensen Mr. 1500 interview?
Oh my God. There were so many times in there when I was listening, because I caught it on your on Stitcher on my podcast, and I there were so many times when I was like, that's so me. Or where I want to be. I mean, I'm basically financially independent by choice. And I do it mostly by having as little expenses as possible. So not extreme financial minimalism, because I have kids. There's only so low I can go, but just living the way I want to, and not having like the mainstream sort of career, just by making choices about how I live. And his comment about going through the airport, and how not having a job, and having the mental discipline from just not being so worn down and stressed out and tired, like enabled him to look at the board and say, I don't need a $15 sandwich. I'll just wait 3 hours and then eat later. Or if it was the intermittent fasting, just there were so many times when I was like nodding along, like, yeah, because I'm gonna be 40, right? And he's what, 43, and right, like early 40s still.
He's 46 now, but he retired when he was 43. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember 43 as being the number, and there were so many instances in there where I was like, yeah. I mean, I didn't realize that I was one of you guys, but I think I am. Like,
Right.
I think I am.
Yep. And I don't like Mr. 1500, for people that want to check out the episode. He publishes his like net worth on there, and he tracked it from the inception of the blog. I mean, he was doing well already, but like it sounds like you, Amelia, and myself, we don't realize that we're like doing well, because we hear, oh, you got to have whatever $12 million to retire or something like that when you're 65 or 70. But really, you probably don't need that much. And most likely, when you're that age, you're not going to be spending the same as you are now. Hopefully, you won't have like the same like cost for housing. Like, hopefully, like we'll own our homes in like 30 years or whatever. But anyway, yeah, I didn't realize it, but at the point where you're like, I understand the spending, we see what we have in various accounts, retirement or taxable accounts or otherwise. A lot of us are in much better shape as long as, you know, you kind of took some measures probably when we were in our 20s where we were like, oh, we should probably do the 401k thing. That's a good idea. So,
Well, the other thing too, I just really, the comments about living your life now versus living your life for 20 years or 30 years from now just really resonated with me because, I mean, I could be a lawyer right now, right? I mean, I could be working a regular job and making a lot more money than I do right now, I'll just say. But, you know, the trade-offs are I, you know, volunteered this morning in my kids' class, and I get to see my kids all the time, and I have a lot more freedom to work out and to do other things. And so it's just like this trade-off, right, for life. Like it's just living life right now with the idea that I don't know if there's going to be life later. Like I don't know if I'm going to have a high quality of life when I'm 70 or 65 or 60 or 50. I mean, I don't know how long I'm going to live. And so just like the thoughts of, okay, I'm going to make the most of what I have right now. Just really, really, it was just nice to hear somebody else say them because I think that all the time. I do.
good feedback on that episode. And I hope, and I will be bringing on more people from the personal finance area and FIRE, which is financial independence, retire early. Although you don't like have to retire. Like everyone that I know is doing like a little something, but it's just on their own terms. It's something they enjoy. Usually they have a lot of freedom with their time. So, okay, shifting back into the real topic instead of talking about other interviews that I've done. Do you have any favorite mistakes that you've made along the journey here?
Just one?
Just a few of the favorites. I know we could probably do a round 2 where you only talk about your mistakes, but yeah, if you have any couple faves.
You know, it's hard to pick out one as being the favorite. You mean it's like as far as this journey or my life in general? Because I ultimately think that every failure, every mistake, every time I tried something and it didn't work was valuable. That I wouldn't be at this point right here, right now, without every one of those stupid, ridiculous things that I did. You know, bad decisions, poorly reasoned decisions. You know, things that were spontaneous or impetuous. I mean, every one of those things was like brought me to here. Like the whole ClickFunnels rabbit hole. Like I lost money in that initially, and I lost a ton of time and the rest. But it put me on the path to this place. And I mean, how many websites did I start before I started this case study? I mean, at least over the last 3 or 4 years, I probably started six websites that I either let the domain, you know, expire and the hosting expire. Only one of them that I kept my ClickFunnels affiliate site because I do earn money from that, but it's not so much that I would retire on, right? But you know, I've kept the case study site, and then I kept that one of the websites that I started, and the rest of them, you could call every one of them a mistake, right? Every one of them was poorly thought out, or I didn't have the knowledge or the expertise to really launch it and make something of it. You know, maybe it's a failure, not a mistake. Maybe it wasn't a mistake to do it. It obviously wasn't a mistake to do it because it brought me here. Things that I wish that I hadn't done, where my life would be exactly the same but for it, or even better but for it. Is law school one of those? I think I might put law school in that one. I think you know, being a kid, right, in my early 20s, like not really thinking about life and what life would look like as a lawyer, and being sort of blinded by status and money and the happiness of my parents, you know, without really considering what that would do to me, how that changed me. But for law school, I would be a very different person in every different way. And law school is like, I don't want to say it's like the military because that would be sort of minimizing what the people in our military go through, but it is a process where they take you in and they break you down and then rebuild you up sort of in the image of what it is that needs to go out and be done out there in that particular field. And so it changed me as a person in so many ways. And they actually tell you that in the first week of law school. They set you down literally in this giant room and they have somebody come out and they're like, okay, everybody write this down. When you leave here today, you need to go home and apologize to your family. And we're like, for what? Like, for what you were about to do to them. Because it's true. Like they teach you to question everything. They teach you to pull apart everything. They teach you to listen to everything. Do you know any people in this world don't listen at all to the things that other people are saying? And you just talk, and you have somebody who actually listens to you and say, that doesn't make sense. And you see people stop and they're like, what do you mean? I say, that's illogical. Like that makes no sense whatsoever. You know, what is the basis for this? Like, what is the reasoning? And they're like, what? Like, what? Like, you really want me to explain why it is that I think this way? I'm like, yeah, like that makes no sense whatsoever. And people, lawyers, like law students, they start to argue because it's fun, because it's enjoyable, it's because we're taught to do, but we don't realize at the time that other people don't enjoy that. That's abrasive. It's offensive.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, you know how people love to be questioned and argue with randos all the time. So, but I'm sure you hopefully got a few wonderful skills from it. I'm sure you're a much better communicator because
I think so. Absolutely.
And I think that, like, I have an engineering background, so I don't think my communication was as good. I think it's getting better now that I'm spending more time with like words and writing and communicating. But you know, in the engineering area, it must be like that in every sort of industry or professional area where it's like you really get like used to that line of thinking and you kind of stick with, you know, logic is part of it, but I imagine that runs deep for a lot of different areas. So,
well, to circle back to your question though about mistakes, I think one of the things that held me back in the beginning in this whole world, and I think it holds a lot of people back, is that they're afraid to make them. Putting yourself out there online, like starting a YouTube channel or going and doing a Facebook group or coming on this interview, right? Like I'm not an expert, right? I could be making all kinds of mistakes right now. People may be listening to this and think, this gal's an idiot, right? Like, there's no way I'm going to go and follow her or ever do anything, partner with this person in the future. But the mistakes is where the learning happens, especially online. And I talk to people all the time who are like, oh, what's your experience with this? I say, well, you didn't try it? Well, no, it costs $15 a month. Well, then why don't you just try it? That's what I'm doing. I'm just trying it. And then I will know, and I don't have to accept the representation of somebody who may or may not be trustworthy on YouTube. It's just the people are afraid of wasting money or losing money. And of course, you know, we have to be prudent with our money when we're getting into this whole online thing. But if you think of it more like an education, right? Like your mistakes are an investment in your education and your experience, then I don't know, maybe it's not so painful. Like people will go and hand their local university $100,000 and then, you know, without blinking an eye, they'll finance it. They'll go in the hole for 25, 30 years, the rest of their lives for this education. But they are afraid to spend $100 a month on a potential product that they could learn from and use, and then maybe decide that was a waste of my money. But then they will have used it and they have that experience to utilize in the future. And so if I could tell anybody who's just getting started, to push down that fear of making mistakes, like just go out there and try it. And if you just like set up a site and try out getting backlinks, and if you destroy it, okay, that's great. That didn't work. And then you'll use that in the next time. But if you look at it like, I have to make money this month, you know, I have to succeed right now this month, and I'm afraid to do anything that might harm that, then it's going to be really difficult to make this a long-term career, which is what I hope that people who are doing this and taking the time to sit and listen to however long this thing is, are doing, because it's an investment in the long-term health and your future. So
you make a great point. I know that people are afraid to make those mistakes, but yeah, it's part of the game. You 100% will definitely make mistakes, so it's okay. Just try to make it a mistake that's recoverable. And most mistakes are recoverable.
Mhm.
Like even the backlink example that you mentioned, like you can disavow and the backlinks if there's some issue with it. Like most things are recoverable. So as long as you're not making a catastrophic level mistake, it's just a thing that you learn from, and try not to do it again, basically.
Well, part of my audience on YouTube is following this whole website investing sort of topic and subject. And I know you don't do a lot of that, but a lot of people recently have come to my channel because of the videos that I've been making about the outcome of the income store, like collapse and how that is. And so I've been
Before
talking
you
to a
go
lot of,
on,
okay,
yeah, can you just describe income store in a brief way for people that have never
sure.
heard of it?
I'm sort of been living this story, so I forget that not everybody in the world knows what is going on with this. But Income Store was marketed themselves as a group where if you wanted to get into website investing, right, you wanted to own or to have a website that produced income passively every single month, that you could give them money and then they would go and find the site for you, and then they would manage it for you and then split the revenue with you, the profits, every month, basically in perpetuity. And so they were advertising on XM radio, and they had billboards, and they're going around the country and just soliciting investors. But people weren't supposed to be investing in the company. They were giving Income Store money under a contract, and that money should have been held separate and then used to buy a website, and then Income Store would run it. And so that's how they marketed themselves. And what ended up happening, and I say allegedly because they haven't come out and said this, but they got to a point where they had to shut down their business, and the government shut them down. The SEC shut them down because Income Store wasn't able to make good on their promises to pay the revenue out to the site partners, the people who had invested. They didn't really invest in the company. Again, they gave their money as a deposit on the websites that were going to be purchased. But what happened was they got upside down in their payments because they guaranteed these payments. And so then new website partners were coming in and giving Income Store their money to buy a site, and instead of buying the site, Income Store was using those funds to pay out previous investors, so they could make their guaranteed payments, because the guarantee was what made this whole thing secure and attractive. It says, you give us our money, and it doesn't matter if we have a site for you, we will pay you at least a certain amount of money a month. And it came to my attention because somebody who had been following my channel, said, hey, I just got into this. I just gave them $100,000. I think you should too. It's really great. They guarantee everything. I'm going to start getting my payments in month 4. It's going to be awesome. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. At the time I thought, well, if these guys are legit, think of all the people who I see who come through my YouTube channel who are beginners, who are really interested in website investing, but they're afraid of making that mistake, right? That unrecoverable mistake. So they're trying to hedge their risk. Let's go with a company that has tons of experience, that will guarantee the payments, that they will hold the money aside, and they'll give you approval rights over the sites that you're going to buy, and they're only going to buy sites from brokers, and this is going to be safe. This is going to be secure. And then it turns out that they were giving their money to a company that wasn't doing anything that they said they were doing. You probably haven't read the court documents, but basically the company was using that money it's like a slush fund, right? Like you were investing in Income Store. They were upside down, but in the last year they gave $500,000 to charity. They were paying for meals and plane tickets. They were paying out site partners, and they took in at least $91 million.
Wow. Crazy.
Somebody quoted the number as 131 million, and they owe the majority of it to investors.
Wow.
Right now.
So, well, that was a long,
Hey, no, sorry, I'm obsessed with it.
But you described it really well, and I 100% was never heard of it, didn't know any of it until I think maybe a couple of your videos popped up, and I watched a couple minutes because, again, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know that they were advertising nationally or the scope of the amount of money. But I mean, it's basically, you described a Ponzi scheme, right? Like that's literally what it is, like per
That's what
definition.
the receiver, and that's what the government is calling it, is a
Okay.
Ponzi scheme.
Okay. And in my head, just it's easy for me to sit here and say it now that you just told me the whole story, but I'm like, no investment is like guaranteed. Like that's just bananas. And since I know like websites and the volatility, it's even more insane. I mean, I guess they were selling it well and they
They
had,
were they're master marketers.
and yeah, it's a shame, especially like, I mean, there's no, basically probably like no recourse for people that lost the whatever 90 plus $1 million. Yeah, that's terrible. But in my head, I'm just like, yeah, if anything seems like too good to be true with like guaranteed returns, like total bullshit. Like I would just not, I don't trust anyone. I'm so skeptical of anything. So in my head, I'm
Well,
just like,
you weren't like their market. Like, they weren't targeting people like you who already had experience running a website, and people who already knew about Google and about website operation. I mean, we're not that target audience. The target audience is people who are on the outside looking in. The words passive, the words guaranteed. These were a married couple. The wife, Carrie Courtwright, was in politics. Graduated from they like Pepperdine Business School, like featured, the like big names on YouTube were interviewing them, and I mean they basically hit every single trust signal that they could possibly hit to snag people who were like looking for things that were passive and guaranteed and easy and investment. It's like the volatility of the stock market versus this other return, and it's like if you do buy and sell in websites and website investing, you'll see plenty of content out there where people will go in and buy a site, and then the ROI on it will be like 50%, 70% in the first year. Like there's a lot of amazing things you can do in website investing. And so 15% when compared to 80%, it seems really conservative, right? Like, oh, 15% in a year, like that's a small amount. That seems like a reasonable amount for a company that is one of the fastest growing companies in the country, that has revenues of millions of dollars in a year. And I mean, they just hit every single one of the buttons. They just hit it.
crazy. Well, we'll link up to your series of videos on the topics so people could like do a little investigating
Well, the
themselves.
reason I brought this up was talking about like the irrecoverable mistakes, right? Like that's the point of bringing this up. Like I don't know that everybody who's watching this is the income store stuff is going to be interesting to them at all, but it is sort of one of those examples of where people, when they go out to try something, it's like $100,000. That was the minimum investment there at the very end in the last year. Was somebody had to come in with 100 grand to try out for the first time, to invest in a website. So you say, oh, hedging your bets and being conservative about your risks. Like people ask me a lot, like, how do I get into this? And I say, well, first of all, nobody who wants to invest in websites should be someone who has never operated a website before. Like I tell everybody, and I'll say it over and over again, if you've never bought a website before, you should go to Bluehost or go to GoDaddy or whatever and buy a domain, get hosting, set up WordPress, and just see what it looks like. Because I don't want to, I mean, we won't even go down the road of due diligence, right? To know what a website is worth. You could pay someone else to do that for you. But if you don't have like the basic understanding, you're just trusting that whoever you're paying is being honest or is being, or is right, like their expertise, that it's right. If you have no basis whatsoever to, try. And so like, probably you start your first website, it's going to be crap, right? I mean, I think all of us, our first websites that we start are probably crap. I don't care who you follow or what course you do, like you're going to destroy it somehow. I mean, that's just how it's inevitable. But all that stuff that you learn when you do this 2 or 3 times, and then you say, okay, well, I'm ready to invest in something. You start small and you say, okay, this may not be the site, like this may not be the best investment of my money, but I say, okay, well, I'd rather invest $100,000 over time in my education in this versus throwing it all in on black on one site, having
Yeah.
no knowledge whatsoever. Like, at least if I do it now, I know what the risks are. And if it blows up in my face, it's because I made that call based upon what I knew, and I knew the risks of it.
Yep.
So,
Yep. And hopefully the couple that you were talking about that threw in the 100K, I imagine it's a bad mistake, but hopefully they have hundreds of other thousands of dollars if they were able to throw 100K into an investment that was like so speculative.
well, some of the folks are, and I think some people will be taking this experience and learning from it. Like, for them, it is a small mistake, right? Like, my $1,500 I spent on Flippa was a small mistake. And for them, maybe 100 grand or even 500 grand, something that won't kill them.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a lot of groups, a lot of people, like there's several young couples who are like, all right, this is the ticket. We're going to save up a whole bunch of money, and then we're going to do this. We're going to jump in on this, So it was, Income Store wasn't doing anything to verify for accredited investors. Like, they have tons of people who put in money that couldn't have invested in in angel funds or, bought stock in these startups because they just didn't have enough assets overall. Like, they weren't accredited investors. And so there are a lot of people who, unfortunately, are really hurting by this, like really hurt by this. And that's, I think, why when the CEO or the former CEO, the Ken Courtright, the principal head, like the face of this, was indicted last week. And there were a lot of people who were really thrilled by that because they just don't see that they're ever going to get their money back, and they want him and everyone else involved to pay. Like, they're really, really hurt by this.
Damn. Yeah. So terrible story, but we could learn from it. We
can. I mean, there's so much that can be learned in this, the website investing industry. And the other thing that gets me is the website operators and the people who are building sites. They say, well, I'm not interested at all in the content for website investing. I'm sorry. I'm not looking to buy a site. And I say, well, do you think that you might ever want to sell your site? Like, do you think that maybe as an exit, you might want to do that? Then maybe you should know what it takes or what buyers are looking for, because then you can actually set up your site in the future to be a viable asset for sale. Like, that's not something that you're going to fix in a day or a week or a month. Like, what buyers are looking for so that you can build that. I mean, building up an affiliate site for a sale, that's a viable strategy.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so shifting a little bit from the mistakes area into what's gone well. So do you have any like favorite things where you're like, man, this actually worked out just like I was hoping, or better?
Oh gosh, I feel like so many of my projects right now are in progress. So it's hard to say that I've got like this win and like, I do think that the case study, just the really hyper focused on informational, low competition keywords, I think that's going really well, and I'm really excited about it. But so much else right now is in progress. Like, that's the thing, in the beginning, it's so hard to come across really big wins, right? The ones where you say, this is motivating, and this is what's going to keep me going, and I'm going to go to sleep thinking about this to get fired up to go to work in the next morning. In the beginning, there just aren't a lot of those things. Like, I don't have a ton where I can come in and say, yeah, I'm super proud of that, and this really worked. Like, right now, I think what I'm working on is working, but I don't feel like I've gotten to a point where I can say, yeah, like, win, like, like getting my case study to $100 a month just with ad revenue. Like, that felt like a big win, to take it, from earning just a couple dollars with AdSense and then moving it over to Ezoic and having it bumped up to $100 a month. Like, that felt like a win, right? Like that was a good decision. Like, that was a good risk. Tried something new, and then it did like 25 times the revenue in a month. It wasn't quite that. It was like 4 times. I think it was making between $25 and $30 a month, and then it bumped to just over $100 a month in ad revenue. Like, that felt really good. But in the scheme of things, like, the big guys are like $100 a month. Like what else?
It's really good. That's just one day out drinking. So
I think of it like a step, though. It's a step to where I want to go.
Yeah, and I will fill in some things for you. So And that sounds normal, by the way, where you're like, you know what? There's no like home runs, but you have a site that you started from scratch that's getting what, like 800 visitors a day? Is that what you said?
Not quite. That's Ron. Mine is 600 and some.
600. So 600 visitors a day, which is really good. You're within stone's throw, very close to, 1,000 visitors a day. And it's just over a year old at this point. Is that right?
10 months.
10 months. Word on the street is sometimes there's a second sandbox at 12 months. And if you kicked off like work again, I wouldn't be surprised if you got some more traffic, once you hit the 12-month period, 13 months, something like that. So
you see a sandbox before 12 months or after, or like right at?
Right at 12 months, I think.
Because I definitely did notice the Google algorithm change that they announced in mid-January, like around the 11th, 12th, 13th. Like I definitely saw a dip for 2 or 3 days there, and then it's slowly been coming back up. And I don't know if it's because of content or just sort of the waves like riding out.
Gotcha. And yeah, I wouldn't, with the more frequent algorithm updates, it is a little harder to decipher. But it may coincide with like the 1 year point as well, where it's like another algorithm update comes, the site's 1 year old, and then you're like, oh wow, there's more. But usually, like most things, the more work you've been putting into it, like the more that compounds. And then when you come out of those sandboxes, 6 and 12 months, good things usually happen. So, and so there's that. I think that's going well for you. And then you're talking to me now for a YouTube video and the podcast. So I'd say your YouTube channel is paying off. There's a lot of people that are watching your videos, and that's, why we're talking. So that's going good, I think.
You're saying I'm doing it?
You're doing it. The problem is it never feels like it. It never feels like it. So no.
It's like when you're like, you have 17,000 subscribers and you have all your stuff. Like, do you feel like you've made it?
No, it never, it never goes away. It's like, it's fine, but it's the, just the human spirit that continually adapts. And, it's good. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the people that listen and or watch. But it doesn't hit me until I've been trying to teach a few sessions at the co-working space here. And I thought 2 or 3 people were going to show up for my SEO talk. And there were like 12 in the middle of the day. And people drove from, kind of far away to check it out. And I was like, oh, wow. I had no clue people wanted to listen to me talk.
Do you have trolls like on your YouTube channel, like people who like type things like "you suck" or like anything like that?
Occasionally there's a few. Usually the spam filter is really good, like, and it kicks out the offensive messages for the most part. But I may put out, maybe I publish too many videos and it's hard for people to actually like keep up to heckle me. So,
well, what's so funny is because I had somebody a couple weeks ago this person subscribed to my channel, and then he left comments on my videos like, no one cares about your videos, but then he stayed subscribed. Like he didn't unsubscribe, like he stayed, and I actually followed him back to his channel just to check it out. Like, who is this guy? Like, who has time to just leave comments like this and do this? But he stayed subscribed, and it's like, who cares? Nobody cares about your videos. I'm like, is this what you do all day? Like well, really?
And the other problem with it, and I have a friend named Alex Cooper over at WP Eagle, and he is experiencing like a rash of like dislike dislike. People are clicking the thumbs down basically, like right when videos go public. And he's like, this person's obviously subscribed. They're getting a notification, and then they're coming out here to dislike the video. And I had that for a little while too. But like I said, I guess at some point people were like, I don't even care about Doug enough to dislike his videos.
I don't know. It takes effort, right? To watch a video all the way through, or to watch at least part of it, and then to leave a negative comment. Like, and that actually signals positive things to YouTube, by the way. Like, if somebody's going to watch your video, even if they're going to hate on it, it tells YouTube to show it to other people.
Yeah. And if they're following the link, YouTube also knows that they like the notifications, and then they'll keep sending more of them. So, it's pretty funny. it does take effort to go and do that. And the other problem, now I'm just talking about myself and then we'll move on. The other problem is, like, you don't know if the troll, the heckler, is like a teenager or basically a kid who is just wasting your time. So it's really hard to tell if I'm dealing with like a an adult with all their faculties or a kid who is
An
just
8-year-old.
messing with me. Yeah, and
An 8-year-old. It could be an 8-year-old. It doesn't have to be a teenager. It literally could be a small child.
yeah, and it's tough sometimes. So, all right. Well, where can people find you, Amelia?
Well, right now, the easiest place to find me is probably over on YouTube. I don't maintain a website. If you search my name, you will find lots of old lawyer stuff, which I'm not affiliated with at all. And thinking about it now, people may call my old law firm to try to find me, and they don't even know who I am anymore. So don't bother with that. I would tell you to go to YouTube, and then people also Facebook message me quite a bit. I'm not building a following on Facebook, so people try to friend me on Facebook a lot, and I ignore them. But people can always DM me on Facebook, and I talk to a lot of people there. And then also, I spend a lot of time in the comments in my YouTube videos, and I answer a lot of questions there, and had a lot of really great conversations there. So right now, that's where I would tell people to go. Like I said, my affiliate marketer friends are probably cringing. They're like, "You don't have an opt-in page or like a hero page or anything." It's on the list. I just am so concerned about being authentic, right? Like really focusing, hyper focused on just not taking advantage of people. And that's the thing that is highlighted by this whole income store thing is they took advantage of vulnerable people, like people who were really, really motivated to get into this and were really, really sensitive. Like sensitive is the wrong word, but it's just like they were really, really the right people to be taken in by this scam. And vulnerable is not the right word either because they're not elderly. You know, a lot of these people are really highly educated, like businessmen and women, but they just that particular marketing it just sucked them right in. And I guess I've just gone far to the other side, which is I only recommend products on my YouTube channel that I use or have used. Like people who like to be an affiliate for products that have a really good payout, right? That the commissions are really high. They'll recommend anything as long as the commission is high. Like if I don't use it, I'm not going to recommend it. I won't talk about it. Somebody the other day said, "Hey, if you send me your affiliate link for this hosting product, I'll use your link." And it was a hosting program that I don't use. I said, "Sorry, I know this would have been a big commission for me, but I don't use that. And so I'm not an affiliate for them, and I'm not going to go and sign up for them just to take your money because I don't know if that's a good idea for you to use it because I haven't used it." So it does kind of cut off, I think, maybe some earning potential for me, but because I'm more focused on this community aspect and more focused on trying to build sort of a network of people who are in the same place. And really, I mean, I'm getting what I need from these people, like the interaction, like connecting with you. I would have never done this, but for YouTube, right? I mean, it's just connecting with you because of those videos and because of being involved in similar aspects, maybe not the same, but like this has a lot of value. So I'll be so much more motivated after this video is over, after it goes live or whatever, to go back to my computer and to do the work that I have set out for myself to do. And so maybe I'm foregoing that money, maybe now, but hopefully in the long term, it will help me build something that's much more valuable and greater overall. So yeah.
Definitely.
So to answer your question, find me on YouTube.
Yep. Go to YouTube and I'll do you a favor. Don't send Amelia any Facebook messages because like they're too hard to manage. Like right now, I think I have like over 1,000 like friend requests. I try to hop in there just to see if it's like someone I actually know from the real world. But
Mhm.
most of the time it's just randos that I have no idea who they are or anything like that.
Yeah, I
So,
ignore them.
and then like if you send me a message, I probably don't get it like on Facebook. So yeah, I'll do you a favor. You don't want people sending you messages on there. So all right.
The one thing I will say though is that people who like the idea of chatting like this, like talking about their websites, who are in the beginner stages, like I'm really happy to do that here on YouTube. Like I would love to talk to more people who either want to talk about their sites or they want to talk through ideas. I don't want to call it a coaching call because I don't think of it like coaching, like let's talk about sites, let's talk about business. And I think a lot of people get a lot of value out of it, just like what we're doing here. I got a ton of value out of this, even though I just sat here and ran my mouth for what, close to 2 hours about God knows what.
We've been going for a while. It makes the interview easier. Usually my throat gets sore from talking so much, but I didn't have to that much in this one. So
Well, somebody earlier was asking me, they were like, are you nervous about going on this, doing this interview? And I was like, no, he's not asking me to talk about anything I'm not an expert in, and I'm an expert in me. I could talk about me for days.
yeah, that's right. So, okay. Thanks, Amelia. Appreciate your time today. It's been a
Thanks.
pleasure. And everybody check her out on YouTube. And maybe we'll bring her on for a round 2 to follow up on some of the case studies in play. All right, thanks to Amelia. And if you have any questions for her, be sure to leave them in the comments. She's around the channel quite a bit, and she'll obviously be checking out the questions for this video. And yeah, be sure to check out her channel. And if you like some of these other interviews that I'm doing, there's many others. So I encourage you to check out some of the other videos on the channel. You'll see success stories. You'll see interviews with founders of companies, other successful entrepreneurs. So thanks a lot. We'll catch you on the next video.